Let's have an honest CEO moment right now, ladies. If the next 6 months of the year look exactly like the first six, would you be thrilled or would you be a little bit horrified? Or maybe you might be right in the middle with some areas of your life or your business, you'd be horrified. Some areas of your life or your business, you'd be thrilled. We're almost halfway through the year. We're like this close to halfway through the year. And if December 31st arrived tomorrow, would you be proud? Would you be happy with the progress that you've made so far this year? Or just really exhausted from all the effort you've put in? They're two very different things. But I want you to stay with me because today we're going to make sure that the rest of the year is designed to be exactly what you want it to be and give you the kind of results that you want. So typically, we set goals, we focus on a new project, and the first quarter, we're kind of getting our head in the game. The second quarter, we're experimenting. So by the third and the fourth quarter is when things wrap up and it gets a little bit more exponential with the progress that we see. So even if you are feeling a little bit horrified, right? Or terrified or exhausted from the year so far, keep that in mind as well, that it is more of a gradual progress that we tend to see with our objectives. So whether you're crushing your goals or you're feeling like you're just completely in the weeds right now, you're in the right space, it's okay. In this moment right now, you have one of the most important opportunities of the year right here. Because most business owners, they don't stop, they don't pause to reflect, and they certainly don't intentionally reset, which is what we're doing today. They just keep on plugging away. And when we do that, what happens is we haven't taken a moment to look at what's working, what's not, and why. And before we know it, the holidays arrive and we're left asking, what happened to the whole year? As the CEO of our business, our job isn't just to work hard, right? Our job is to provide the direction, the focus. It is our job, even if we are the only employee of our business, it is our job as the CEO to make sure that the ladder that we're climbing of this year is leaning against the right wall. Now, we want to make sure that your business that you're building is actually creating both the business and the life that you want. And that's why this time of year is just so powerful. I can't believe that we're halfway through the year already, by the way. I feel like it was just a heartbeat ago when I was at the January retreat with the ladies and we were planning the next retreat, which is coming up this weekend. And I was thinking that's so far away. And here we are, fast forward 6 months. But when we really take a moment at this time of year, the reason it's so powerful is because we've come far enough, as I was just saying, so that we have some real data that we can use around what our hopes, our dreams, our goals, our plans are. And we can see what's working and we can see what's not if we take the time to do that. We can see where we're making progress and maybe where we're just kind of drifting a degree off course every day or every month, because you know how that goes, right? Every little degree off course that we go, suddenly we end up in a completely different country than the one that we wanted to actually get to when we set out. So this conversation that we're having today, it's not about judgment. It's not about guilt or feeling like I should be further along. This is about awareness and celebration, of course, because celebrating what steps we have already accomplished. That's why I encourage you to write down wins and to celebrate wins every single day, every week. And of course, as we step into the halfway point of the year, you definitely want to be writing down what are the wins, because they get crowded out by all the noise of the things that aren't working. So taking a moment to do that is a huge way for you to start to step into the reset process. You want to get into the right mind space when you're doing this. And if you're just focused on what's wrong, which we will look at, but if you're just focused on that, then you're going to plan differently than if you're in a good headspace and you're aware of some of the wins that you've had as well. So that's why that is so important. But what we're going to do today is maybe make just some small, as I said, like a degree different shifts that will make today dramatically transform the second half of the year. So what we're doing today is we're focusing on being in that leading CEO space. A lot of you've heard me talk recently about the CEO shift. It's a free training that I have. I'll drop the link below. The CEO shift is about really stepping into that role of CEO, which many of you maybe didn't deliberately choose. You chose to have a business, but you didn't necessarily choose, I'm going to be the CEO. And then suddenly here you are, you're the CEO. And for some of you, not all of you, but for some of you, that's a scary place to be because you don't exactly know what the CEO is supposed to do. So then you get busy doing a lot of work that is not leading the business, not being the CEO. And then that's where we go off a few degrees, right? So the shift that we want to make with taking the time to do the reset, one of the first things we want to do is we want to remind ourselves that we want to shift into that role of CEO. We want to be in a place of focus and direction, not just reacting to the day-to-day grind and managing what we're doing in our business right now. We want to be focusing on designing the second half of the year, managing the time ahead of us, not this moment and just treading water, working on whatever we have that's right in front of us. We want to go from reacting to responding, and also looking at what should I subtract? Because I know that you are all so ambitious, but the one thing that I've learned over 20 years of coaching amazing women just like you that are watching this right now is that there is this ambition trap. And that ambition trap is that we have so many ideas. We are capable of so many things, especially with no technology. We're suddenly able to do things that big companies can do, but we can do them as a smaller entity. And it means that our capacity is enhanced, but that also means that it's more and more and more on our shoulders. And the more pots we have on the stove that we're cooking with, something's going to get burnt. So one of the things to be aware of as we're making the CEO shift is to realize it's about deducting things, not necessarily just about adding things to our plate. So the first question that we're going to ask ourselves is, what is taking more time than it should right now? And so as you look back over the last 6 months, you've got enough data, you're in the swing of the year. Do you feel overwhelmed, rushed, and behind in any areas? Maybe with some deadlines that you've set for yourself, maybe with some of the projects that you have responsibility over for other people. Do you just generally feel rushed and overwhelmed? And start to notice what are the things that are making you feel that way. Because typically, yes, feelings of being rushed and overwhelmed are feelings, not necessarily facts, but they can lead us to the facts to begin to see what we might want to shift. So we can notice how we're feeling in our areas of business and the different roles that we play as the CEO, and start to ask the question, what's taking more time than it should, is really what we're drilling down to here. Are you over delivering, which I'm a fan of a lot of the time, but only if you under promise. A lot of people are over promising and over delivering. Maybe it's to clients, maybe it's even to themselves. But is there client work that is just taking more time than it should? Admin and email. Is there some tasks that you're doing that are taking more time than they should? Maybe you're planning content or meetings. Do you feel like, oh my gosh, I feel like I'm in meetings all the time. They're just taking more time than they should. Travel or just literally everything, right? So at the end of the week, if you start to feel this way, like things are taking more time than they should, then one of the things that you can start to do is you can start to track your time. And I know a lot of you have been with me for a little while, so you're familiar with this idea of doing a time reality audit. And what this is really just tracking your time for a week. It's tedious and it can be something that you think, well, what's the point? But if for 1 week you actually look at where you're spending your time, you'll have some aha moments, I can guarantee, because every single time I give this exercise to a client, they are blown away by what they see. Even though when we put our attention on something, we do change it because we're observing it. So when you track your week, if you track your time for a week, you're probably going to perform better just because you're tracking it. The example I always like to give is I know a lot of people have gone through phases where maybe you've had a food log or you've tracked your calories for your food intake. And when we do that, the simple act of observing it upgrades our behavior. But we still do get insights from it because there's some things that we don't know or that we don't realize. So when you do your time audit, you're on one hand going to feel more productive, but you're also going to clearly see what's going on. Because a lot of times we feel like we don't have any time and we feel rushed. But when we do a time audit, we can see the truth. We can see, was there time? And I was just maybe spending it or investing it on different things than I wanted to. Or were other people in charge of my time? Who was delegating what I was doing? And you might also find the flip side of the coin, that you feel like you have too much time, and then you take a look at what you're doing and you might make some adjustments in the other direction. So it can go in either direction. But it's really helpful to do, especially midway through the year, to do a time audit and really see how you're spending your time. A lot of you are familiar with me talking about the ideal schedule. I have a brand new version that I'm using in the new 90-day plan. And it allows you to score how you're doing with your ideal CEO schedule so that you can stay on track, because it's good to do an audit and then you want to create the picture, the template of what you want your time to be, which is flexible. It's a template, right? So it's something to work with each week. But you also want to keep yourself accountable and see how you're doing throughout the year. So when we do the reset, what's great about that is if you come here right now and you're going through these questions and you're doing the reset for yourself, not only are you getting clarity and insight about where you're at, this is an opportunity, if you want to take it, for you to put your train back on the track, almost like a fresh sheet of paper that you can now begin fresh. So I encourage you to do that as you're doing your reset so that you step into the second half of the year a little bit differently. So the next question that we have, and it's really going back to what I was saying a minute ago about deducting things, subtracting things. What is taking up space that no longer deserves it? So the most successful CEOs aren't just good at deciding what to do. They're really good at deciding what not to do. And a lot of people think, well, I'm going to put on my things not to do, like things that are obviously bad habits or a waste of time, scrolling on my phone and wasting time. Those are the things that a lot of people find an easier time of putting on a not to do list, right? Of subtracting. But that's not what I'm talking about here. What I'm talking about here is if you want to increase your capacity and want to speed up your progress and really laser focus on those things that you want so that you can ensure that you get where you want to get by the end of the year, then you will, I'm not even going to sugarcoat it, you will need to subtract some things that feel like really great things to be doing. So for example, if you feel like, and a lot of us can feel like this way, that we need to be doing everything. We need, especially with so much new technology, I need to know the latest in AI, and I need to know the latest in my industry, and I need to be on social media and posting so I'm present, and I need to have a podcast, and I need to have a blog, and I need to update my website, right? All of these things, if you look at them individually, seem very valid. They don't seem like your typical bad habits or things to put on your not to-do list. However, when you're collectively feeling responsible that you want to do all of these things, you're not going to create the laser focus you need to be exceptional at it, to move the needle, to create the progress that you want to. So one of the main roles of the CEO is deciding what not to do, and it may be difficult to make that choice. So really taking a moment, and here's a little subtraction matrix that you can use, is to really look at what is a hell yes? What have you outgrown? What are you just doing out of habit? And, what would really create some relief if it just vanished? Sometimes we have to look at not like the proper way to do things, but the way to do things that would be the most efficient for us right now. And so we have all of these obligations as business owners. We're wearing so many different hats. So as we're in the midpoint of the year, looking at what you need to subtract. A lot of times when I do retreats or workshops or when I do my 90-day planning, I think everybody gets excited because it's like, oh, I'm going to plan a bunch of stuff and I'm going to get really focused. But what I have learned over the years tends to happen, and I'm guilty of it too, is that we're just layering. We're layering more stuff, like we're piling it on top of the stuff that we have. We have these goals for the year, and then, oh, and I want to do these things, and there's these things, and then there's all of these things that I want to do that I'm not even acknowledging right now. Before we know it, we're carrying so much weight of all the things that we want to do. And then we've got all of the things that it takes to run a business. And then to be a human being on the planet, especially as a woman, as a caretaker, that it is completely overwhelming. And so taking a moment, and instead of just being in the mindset of, I'm going to plan, I'm going to set all my goals, to be also in this critical moment halfway through the year, looking clearly at what you need to prune. In nature, we prune. I'm not a good gardener, but we prune so that you can actually help the plant grow and be more healthy. That's what this particular question about subtraction is really targeting right now. So, obviously we have a lot of obligations. There's a lot of really amazing opportunities. And for some of you, you're so in demand that there are so many people that want you to speak, that want you to help them, that want you to be on a panel, that want answers or support, or they want to sit down and have coffee with you, or they want you to be a part of your networking group, and you're getting emails with all of this noise and distractions and the stress and the obligations and the requests. And so taking a moment and just pruning. And I don't care how much you're carrying, right? It may be that you're pretty good at doing the subtraction and you're saying, Marianne, I'm pretty good. I'm not, I don't have anything to subtract. Take a look anyway, because you may very well find that you do have things you could subtract, because I think it's kind of like, I know a lot of you have heard me talk before about the idea, and I don't know if it's an urban legend or not, of you put a frog in a pot and you gradually boil the water. The frog won't jump out, it'll just die, because it just gets used to the rising temperature and it doesn't realize it's in jeopardy. Whereas if you put a frog in a pot of boiling water, and I gotta come up with a better idea for this because of just the imagery, it feels awful. But if you were to put a frog in a pot of boiling water, it would jump right out because it would realize instantly it was hot water. But for a lot of us, we've been in the water, we've been in the pot boiling for so long, we aren't even aware of the fact that there is a lot of obligation, there is a lot of clutter, there is a lot of overwhelm, and it needs pruning. So as this is the mid-year point, this is the time to start to think about that. The third question kind of ties so beautifully in with this. Have I created enough white space to think? And not just to think, to unleash your expertise and your creativity. Because the women that come to me are experts. They are established. They have been doing what they've been doing for a long time. And I think, can you imagine not giving Einstein the time to and the space to really like ride his bike in circles and ponder things, right? He'd struggle to have come up with all of the theories and the breakthroughs because he needed time to think. He needed space. And we may or may not be Einstein, but we still need the space to think. You know, when we're spending all our time managing our business and focusing on the day-to-day grind and just treading water, we never create that just white space. Have you ever, my husband, when I first met him, one of his favorite things to do was to just bob in the ocean. He lived in Redondo Beach. And him and his friend, the water was a little cold for me. So unless when I was drinking, I'd had enough to drink, which is probably not a good combo. But he would just bob in the ocean. And it was funny because him and his friend Michelle were bobbing in the ocean. And it's just that kind of like white space, just the gentle ocean, just not even paddling or anything, just bobbing up and down. And they'd been there for quite a while. They were just chatting a little bit, bobbing in the waves. And then the lifeguard swam over to them and he said, "Can you just like paddle a little bit now and again so that I know that you're not drowning?" But that feeling, you know what I'm talking about, right? That bobbing in the waves, that time to just contemplate things that may very well not turn into anything. What I've noticed is I've got such a lovely routine now because it's been 20 years of me talking about ideal schedules and routines and really being in a space of creativity and designing and innovation for my business, the Women's Business Momentum Center. And I know those of you who followed me for a long time know that I'm constantly staying up to date and innovating and coming up with new ideas for things while keeping the basics solid. The foundation doesn't change, but for most things that really work. But having enough space to think is so helpful. Creating white space so that you have time in your calendar, not squeezed in to make that decision that you have to make in between driving from one networking meeting to grabbing breakfast, right? Literal time that you can just sit or lie. My favorite thing to do, lie in the hammock. Oftentimes now, because I'm in such a routine, I wake up in the morning and I don't have to get right out of bed and hit the ground running. That is when a lot of really great ideas come to me as well, when I'm just lying there in the morning. Typically great ideas, inspiration, understanding about what decisions to make and choices to make happen when we create the space for them. So it's really important for you to be able to create this space when you haven't got like 100 tabs open in your brain. This is something that may take a little time for you to create, because for me it took time before I kind of thawed out a little bit, because even when you stop cramming something into every single minute, your brain will still be going and firing, and you'll need to get into a rhythm of starting with scheduling just one day off. And I know that sounds kind of insane to some people, to have a day off as a business owner. And I'll be honest with you, I think this is a huge challenge. And on my 90-day plan, as I mentioned, for the new version of the 90-day plan, I have a scoring system, and then I have a metric that you're putting in that you're going to be having as a target for the next 90 days. And mine is to have 1 day off a week. So I'm with you, ladies, in this. I've created space. I've created pockets. I've created time, white space within the day. But this is the next level for me. Ultimately, the metric I want to get to is kind of like a normal person, 2 full days off a week. I've managed to create an ideal schedule where I don't have meetings and clients every day. I have several days off without meetings and clients, but I'm always checking email or working on something for the business. And I think it would be really helpful for me. So I'm working towards, and this is what I'm suggesting here for you, is just 1 scheduled protected day off. Now, you can also have a CEO day, but these are 2 different things. We have a scheduled day off, right? And that, what I'm saying is no work, not even CEO thinking or whatever. Ideas might come to you. You can make a note of them, but you're not deliberately doing that. But I also would suggest that you have time during the week, whether it's a full day or an afternoon or time, where you're not doing client work, you're not doing admin, you're not just checking in for a minute with people. You are just in your CEO role. So starting to set up the schedule to be like that, so that you can, as you step into the second half of the year and we do this reset, that you can start to create more of that white space. A lot of what we're doing here is we're creating habits. So when we give ourselves a reboot or a reset, and the middle of the year is a great time to do that, a lot of people don't take advantage of the middle of the year opportunity for this. For most people, they do this at the beginning of the year, the New Year's resolutions, and then, a couple days or weeks later, they're out the window. But if you can create habits for yourself where you're setting up your new schedule, you've pruned because of the last question that we were just talking about with subtracting, and then you're starting to create some white space for yourself. And then you need the habits of consistently creating that white space for yourself, and maybe even the accountability. Honestly, it's why coaching works so well, because when you have to be accountable to someone else, then you are more likely to take that day off or to do the things that you've said for yourself. We're all great at being accountable for our clients and our customers, but we need someone to help us maybe be accountable for ourselves. So then we move into the 4th question. And you notice the layers of these questions. I hope you're writing them down, because what we're doing here is they're all building on each other so that you can create this reset for yourself. And there's nothing, as I said at the beginning, that's like brand new or a crazy idea or needs a lot of work. It's just food for thought. But the 4th question is, what do I actually want right now? You may have outgrown the goals that you set in January. And I know a lot of times we can feel like we need to be committed to what we said. We need to finish the projects that we've started. Oftentimes there'll be things, I'll be working with a client and it's clear that we need to let something go, but it's difficult because we feel like we've got so much skin in the game already, right? We've already invested a lot of time or money and energy into something. So we just want to finish it. My mom's a crazy example of this. She's not a business owner, but my mom records, like many people, like has recorded shows on her TV. She has to watch them all. Like she won't allow herself to just delete them. Magazines that she has, she can't give them away unless she's read every page, which doesn't sound crazy until you sit next to her and you hear her say, okay, all right, did that one, next, finished. Like it's a chore, right? This is something that's supposed to be enjoyable, but she's in this mindset that she's already purchased these magazines. She's made an investment. She's got skin in the game. And so she's investing her time, which she could be doing other things in, doing that. And she's got plenty of other things that she enjoys doing, but this is like an obligation to her. Do you have things like that that maybe could be pruned? Going back to one of the other questions. And really now looking at what do you actually want now, looking back over the goals that you set for the year. And the great news too is that if you didn't set goals yet this year, if you didn't create a plan, it's the middle of the year. You can do it now. You're right on track. So take a look and begin to notice. Go through your goals from that you set, if you set them, and start to really just recalibrate a little bit. Ask yourself, does this genuinely excite me still? And that doesn't mean that just because something doesn't excite you that you need to throw it out. It may be that you need to change some of the variables around it, like the way you're doing something or who you're doing it with or how you're doing it, right? You want to look at the goals you set and for yourself in the business. Does this align with the life that I'm trying to build, right? And is this goal helping me create more profitability, more time freedom, and more sustainable growth? Those are the three metrics that we're tracking now in the 90-day plan with the Women's Business Momentum Center. And I'm scoring each one of those. I'm so excited that I figured out a way to create a scoring method so that from 90-day plan to 90-day plan, you can really answer the question, is this helping me increase my financial freedom? Is this helping me increase my time freedom? Is this increasing the growth and the profitability of my business? So looking at your goals and not only asking if they excite you, if they aligned, but are they moving you towards those three things? Because what I've realized is we have a lot of things that we think are important, but when we really boil it down to time freedom, financial freedom, and sustainable growth of the business, and we just look at those three metrics, it helps us really prune down a little bit more and deduct a little bit or shift gears. Your goals are never meant to, like my mom, right? That my mom's in a cage. She's like locked herself in this have to finish the magazines and the TV shows cage, right? We don't need to be in that cage. It's okay to think of your goals as a compass and give yourself permission to go, this was who I was at the beginning of the year. We evolve so quickly. We're not only are we evolving and changing and growing and learning, that then we have more information and we can see that the path we're on is not the right path anymore. The world around us is changing so quickly that we also have to evaluate that so that we make sure that we're still on the right track. Now, the final question number 5, and remember what we're doing here is we are resetting. It is our CEO mid-year reset. What would make December feel like a win? So if you have vague goals and you're not using metrics to measure your progress and keep you on track from week to week, you're going to get vague results. You want to really not just have numbers, but it has to be really tapped in with specific destinations that you want to achieve. So part of it is really having a visual picture, an idea of where it is that you want to get to, and taking a moment as we are in this mid-year moment to just think about where do I really want to be by the end of the year? I love this question. When I do my weekly momentum process in the 90-day planner, every week I do a mind map and I ask myself, where do I want to be by the end of the week? And there's something about really that question cuts to the core. And so then you put it on steroids when you ask, where do I want to be by the end of the year, by the end of December? And start to picture it a little bit as you're asking yourself that question. Maybe close your eyes right now. Feel a sense of pride and accomplishment. Reflect on some of the moments in your imagination of what has happened and transpired over the second half of the year. And it could be about things you've accomplished, but it might also be in that image that you're creating for yourself that you're reflecting on taking Fridays off, hiring your first team member, having a fully booked client roster, publishing a book. And maybe write down a couple of outcomes. These aren't goals. You're just writing down some outcomes so that you can hold on to the picture of this that you would like, that you could use as your North Star to keep you focused. Because distractions are going to pop up. There's going to be these thieves of your time and your energy and your attention. And you're going to have this North Star to hold you strong. So you need the win to be able to really stay on track. So let me recap. Question number 1 was, what's taking more time than it should? And that really allowed us, as you can see here from this slide, to do a time audit and expose maybe, you know, how we're feeling and use the feelings of feeling rushed and overwhelmed and like pinpoint the facts behind it. So question number 1, what's taking more time than it should? Question number 2 is what's taking up space that it doesn't deserve. And that's where we really talked about the idea of subtracting, not just noise, but also things that are really positive that we might want to just back burner, and we'll work on that next year. I know for over a year, I backburnered working on the new planners. I had plenty of planners, but I love working on the planners. And I knew when I work on designing new planners, it's consuming. Like every single day, I could be distracted by that. So I needed to do it at a time like right now where I'm in this bubble and I'm able to be more in a place of white space. Summertime's great for this kind of stuff for me too. So I had put it on the back burner list, which if you don't know what I'm talking about, it's just a list that you can put things on that are really great things that you want to do, but you want to subtract them right now. You at least write them down on a back burner list. You can have it at the back of your planner. That way your brain can go, oh, okay, it's all right. She's holding on to that, and it can let it go, and you can focus on what's in front of you. So subtracting the noise, and sometimes the noise is good stuff. Like, I really want to do this thing, right? Or this thing, the attention, all the people that want your attention. And also protecting your calendar and doing some pruning. So that's what question number 2, which was what's taking up space it doesn't deserve, was aimed at. Question number 3, have I created enough white space to think? I like to think of it this way. Have you created the space to be great? Because you are absolutely amazing at what you do. You're established. You've been doing it a long time. You're really good at it. Even, you know, part of this is like being great in terms of really shining the light and helping and creating an impact for other people. But even in like little moments and connections with people in your life, if you don't have enough white space in your life, then you're not present in the moments, the conversations that you're having with other people. You're not being as great in those moments as well as you could be. So really creating that CEO time, and I'm challenging you 1 day off a week, or if you already have that 2, if you already have that 3, right? And creating that white space time for yourself. Question number 4 was that recalibration of your goals. What do I really want now? What do I want is it's the question that you can always come back to. You know, if you're ever feeling overwhelmed, and I talk about like my book, Daily Momentum, I have a whole section of the book about what do you want, and then a whole nother chapter on it, because it sounds so simple. And there's so much more to it. And it's almost like a little meditation that you could do throughout the day. What do I want right now? What do I want right now? and it brings you back to the present moment. And then in this moment of this reset, we can ask ourselves as we recalibrate, what do I actually want now? Now, this moment. Give yourself permission to choose again. Choose, choose, choose. And the fifth and final question is, what would make December feel like a win? Or the way that I phrased it too was, where do I want to be by the end of the year? And really defining some elements of that. You can, of course, then create, I actually like to do the 90-day, the quarterly goals. So then you can set up your next quarterly goals from this place. You've now got fertile ground to start thinking about that. But you're setting a North Star at least, so that when you make those 90-day goals, you know the direction that you want to go in. You're not just kind of floating around, not like my husband bobbing around on a calm sea, but often it feels like there's just waves just popping us all over the place, and we're not moving in the direction that we want to. The second half of the year, as it says here, is going to happen if you intentionally design it or not, right? We're going to have the second half of the year, right? And you could spend the time reacting to your business and your life, or you could really make that CEO shift and you could lead. And if you want to, once again, learn more about the CEO shift, you can go to the website, getitdonediva.com. You can get the free training right there. The CEO shift, it's a really powerful training. I'm getting people that are watching it going, oh my gosh, this is mind blowing. These are people that have been with me for years, and it really will set you on the path. It's creating fertile ground for the new 90-day roadmap that I've created. And all of these little breakthrough questions and ideas that we have right now. So I'm going to, as we wrap up, leave you with one final thought and question to ponder. And it's the same one that I asked you at the beginning. And that's, if nothing changed between now and December, would you be happy with where you're heading? Maybe the answer is yes. Great. Make sure you keep doing the things that you're doing and you intentionally bring those into the second half of the year. Maybe the answer is no. Great. That's fantastic awareness. And awareness is exactly where momentum begins. You've got a half year left to make some incredible momentum. Now, if those 5 questions brought about some nice realizations to you, you could use those as a fertile ground for then creating a 90-day plan. That's exactly what I'm going to be doing in the 90-day strategic planning workshop for female founders. If you're interested in that, you can message me, you can go look on the website. And then, of course, watching that CEO shift. These are all things that you can do to create momentum based on what we've been talking about. And I want you to remember that the women and the business owners who finish the year strong aren't necessarily the ones who work the hardest. So please don't think that what I'm telling you here is great, rally cry, now work really hard and focus the rest of the year. They're the ones that are actually being super intentional about where they're heading. So that's why it's so critical that you are setting clear metrics and you're tracking them and clear goals as you move through the year. So I hope that you create a 90-day plan, and I would love you to create it with me. You have got these 5 questions now so that you can create a clearer plan to grow whatever it is that you want to create over the next 90 days. So thanks for joining me, and I will see you in momentum.